All right, it is January 18th, 2023, just after 7 p.m. We'll do roll call for the Town Hall Building Committee, full committee meeting. Say your first name, say your full name, and say you're here, please. Kurt?
Garrett Lubitz here.
Tucker?
Tucker Meehan here.
Carolyn?
Carolyn Coffey here.
Mark?
Mark Cameron here.
Wayne?
Wayne Sy here.
And Phil Weir here. Chairman. John, do you want to jump right into this? Are you ready for this?
Sure. So guys, I am I'm driving back to my computer, but I will be able, by the time I'm back, I will be able to get back and show you the price piece of this. But what I wanted to do first is just kind of inform the rest of the committee kind of what's been going on, and then we'll kind of pick up where we left off the other night. So as you all know, we were given the okay by the select board to kind of move ahead with trying to get a number in hand for town meeting. And in order to do that, we needed to choose our CM. So we had solicited for CM firms. We pre-qualified 3 firms, sent them the request for proposals. Only 2 responded, but that's fine. We were able to go ahead and move ahead because we were able to pre-qualify the 3. Colantonio decided to not respond. We received we received responses from Commodore Builders and from Delbrook J.K. Scanlon. And as part of this process, there is a technical piece and then there's the price piece. The other night when we met, we took care of really the first half of the technical component, which is the interview. We interviewed both firms, got to meet about 5 to 7 individuals for each firm. Everyone from the superintendent, who was proposed to be on site, project executive, and everybody in between. At that point, we had a 40-minute presentation from them. We asked them to address 6 specific areas regarding the project, lessons learned from other projects, that sort of thing, and then really had 40 minutes of Q&A to be able to kind of dig a little deeper. So both firms interviewed well. And then at the end, they left. The committee, we spoke a little bit further and realized that the written portion, the technical proposal, there was a bit of a mess up in us kind of getting that out to them, but those hadn't been reviewed yet. So the selection committee was tasked with having a look at those technical proposals, which is really just, if done correctly, the written form of what they had just presented to us about how they would approach the project, the team members, and all of that. So what I'd like to do is kind of go through, let each person kind of talk a little bit about their thoughts after reviewing the technical proposal, and just give me your thoughts on both Commodore and Delbrook. And at the end of this, to kind of wrap up this non-price piece of this selection, I'm gonna have Steve Kirby kind of keep track of, okay, who's your first choice and who's your second choice. It's kind of an easy ranking. You're either first or you're not, and see where that plays out. And then at that point, I will be back and be able to share the price piece of this. And let's see if that, what happens when we put numbers to this, if we still think that, the first choice is the best choice for Cohasset. And then we'll talk a little bit more about our flexibility and negotiating numbers and that sort of thing. But before we talk numbers, let's kind of wrap up the piece on the technical part. So because you're kind of first on my screen, let's see, Garrett, do you mind going first and kind of giving your thoughts on what you reviewed, and
Sure.
Any other thoughts about the interview now that you can kind of view them both together?
Sure. Yeah. And I know we spent a little bit of time debriefing on this, so I guess this is also for the benefit of the other members of the committee who weren't attending the interviews. So I think John is right that I think we have 2 very qualified CMs that we could work with here. I would say that they did give different presentations / interviews as part of the process. Commodore came across as very polished, and they had a slide presentation, and they seemed like they had basically rehearsed a presentation for us. The Delbrook team was a much more conversational tone. They, the guys looked like half the guys looked like they had just come off of the construction site. They still had on their boots and things like that. And I think that probably comes through at least a little bit to me in terms of the way that I assessed their bids too, and their presentations. I think that they both, as I said, they both were very qualified, came across well. They had, clearly thought about our projects, and there was they were impressive, equally on those merits. My takeaway was that I'm having a little bit of a hard time separating this project, because I really do see sort of two different work streams. And in my mind, there's sort of the work stream that gets us to town meeting and gets us to a yes vote at town meeting, and then on for town election. So I think that those are that's sort of the first work stream, and then the second work stream is the construction. My feeling after reviewing all of the information and the interviews, I feel like Commodore is slightly better than Delbrook, better positioned to work with us over the next few months to get us to a yes vote. And that could just be, as I said, part of the way that I viewed the presentation process. I don't know that that's entirely fair to Delbrook, but I got a better feeling from Commodore than I did from Delbrook. And as I said, they seemed to be really, they mentioned several times that they were aware of the timeline that we're working on, and that they were accustomed to dealing with with partners in basically the same position that we are. That I think it was the Dedham Public Safety Building that they had worked on, which was a similar situation where they started working on the project, didn't have funds in hand, and they needed to work with the town of Dedham to get a yes vote to secure funding for the project. I didn't get the sense that Delbrook had the same experience, when we tried to tease it from them, but they indicated they had worked on similar projects, but there was nothing that was I would say that was truly analogous, was my takeaway, and particularly on the compressed time frame that we're working under. On the construction side, as I said, I thought that both were, both could were more than capable of handling this project. I thought that Delbrook, their strength really shone through on the depth of experience. Their team is populated with people who have many decades of experience, and that I think was pretty clear in their presentation and the way that they were able to respond. If you were looking to bring somebody in to just sort of to build the town hall, I think that you probably would have looked at these guys and said, these guys are the ones who I want to I want to work with on that part of the building. That you'd have no questions about their ability to deliver on that side of the project. I think that there are also some synergies with Delbrook, in that they have another project going on in town at the same time. So in terms of the ability to move personnel, or if we have questions, if they happen to be working on the other project, it's easy for them to respond and to sort of check out the sites. So they're not going to be sort of pulled in different directions. Now that's not going to be for the entirety of the project, but certainly at the beginning stages of our project, there would be some overlap. So that's sort of where I looked at the Delbrook strengths. On the construction side, I viewed the Commodore strengths as having worked on more similar projects to what we're doing, which is renovation and an addition. There were a couple that sort of jumped off the page to me. One that I'm very familiar with, which is the work that they did at the Noble and Greeno School. Happens that I went to the school. My daughter is there right now, so I've seen that work firsthand. And having that as something that I'm familiar with is, that's a good data point for me. Share and see that, hey, this was a project that they worked on that, turned out well. And it's a really impressive structure that they were able to, basically blend these projects together. And I know that there's a lot of work that comes on the architecture side, but that's, to deliver on the construction side is also, really important on these pieces as well. So on the balance, I probably have a slight preference towards Commodore. I don't have, again, I don't know, where we're going to land on sort of the budgetary pieces. We touched on that a little bit, John, I know in our last meeting, but I at this point, just purely on the technical side, I would say slight preference to go with Commodore over Delbruck.
Okay, Garrett, thank you. Mark, you want to go next?
Sure. So, I don't want to repeat everything that Garrett said, and I think he stated everything very well and accurate, between the polishedness of Commodore, the longevity and depth of the field superintendent side on the Delbrook side. And both firms are more than adequate to build this project for us. I think that there's an advantage with Delbrook being local and familiar with Cohasset and becoming more familiar with Cohasset through the harbor project that they're working on. But in some respects, Commodore may have some abilities to at points during the time with their presentation and delivery skills, be able to help sell components and communicate key components to the people of Cohasset during the process once we're under construction. So, they have, both firms probably have that ability, I would say, but it might be a little bit more firsthand nature for Commodore to implement that and put that out there for us. But again, I think a big part of it too is the cost, right? So both firms, I mean, they're very, very close, neck and neck, and I think that the cost will play a significant portion of it, because as we know, this town is tasked with many things ahead of it, and if it's when push comes to shove, we've got to make some economic decisions. If we feel that both firms are adequate to build the project, we've got to look at the financial side of it as well.
So Mark, just so I'm clear, it sounds like your first would be Commodore, your second is Delbrook. And cost, again, when I divulge the cost information, we'll get more into that. But the non-price piece of this, the technical piece, your Commodore 1, Delbrook 2.
Yeah, and it's very close. I mean, it's really, it's very close. It's because there's certain sides of it. I mean, both firms have the BIM technology. It's pretty common in the industry right now, especially to have that in those capabilities in-house. So yeah, I would say your statement's accurate, John, but it's not light years apart, and I'm more than happy with both firms. So
Okay, no, that's great. Thank you. Wayne?
Well, first of all, I'm overwhelmed with the amount of information that was provided in the two packets. When you get up to 200 pages, and I'm trying to look at every one of those pages on my cell phone, it was a daunting process for me. I concur with both the others. I agree that Commodore did, a fantastic job. I love the colored binder and stuff that they did. Everything was, just right in line. I think Delbert, came in just a little bit lower in terms of maybe the quality or the stuff of their materials. But I agree that either one of the companies could do it well. And Commodore clearly does projects up to 50, 90 million, $100 million. And I look at that and say, gee, is our project going to be a small one, or will they have to charge enough to cover, the cost of their overhead and all those great people on their staff. And I look at Delbert as, I thought they have a selection of a subcontractor now with doing the site work and stuff that I've been pretty impressed at what they've accomplished on that site in Cohasset, and thinking, well, maybe they're a good person to go up against the old town hall with the new foundation and everything. And they are local, so that there should be some economies in that direction. So my thing would be a slight, and I did not get to the number from Commodore. I did get to the number for Delbert in terms of what I could find in the information that was prepared and presented to us. So I would go Delbert, and with just really either one can do it, but Commodore would be maybe paying a little extra because of the extra.
Well, but remember, until we show you the cost blind, who would be your first? Who would be your second? Cost blind.
Yeah, like I said, I didn't see the second number or anything.
Well, you weren't supposed to really see the first one either, so that's a mistake. That's a mistake on our end. But for
taking it from the part of the bonding of the job.
Okay. Well, no, you haven't seen their proposal. So,
Right.
Yeah, right. Now, obviously, different bonding capacities. That's fine. But what, if you were talking, what I'm hearing is it sounds like Commodore has a slight edge over Delbrook, but it's almost negligible.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you. Phil?
Sure. I really enjoyed being at the interviews and seeing both companies. I had a couple different impressions. I pretty much concur what I'm hearing from the other three. Commodore Premium was 7 people plus a nice presentation, good booklet, and a visual as well. And they were very, very sharp. Everybody got to speak on the panel, and they were very direct in their answers when we had questions at the end. I really liked that. When Delbrook got on, I felt like I was talking to the actual builders, the people I'd be dealing with day to day on the site. That felt comforting, that I was talking to the people I'd be actually working with. And the experience level of the group of Delbrook was also very impressive. So, either company is, in my mind, was certainly capable of handling this project. I guess my concern comes in the next few months when we have to deliver this to the town. And my feeling would be that Commodore may respond better for us and look better for us in front of the town, as far as trying to educate the public. And that's a real big concern, getting us from here to there. I don't think Delbrook would do a bad job. I just feel like Commodore would respond better. So, I just, either one to me, I think would do a fabulous job. I would give the edge to Commodore. Pretty much it.
Thank you. Natalie?
Yeah, I have to agree with what folks before me said. Commodore did, it seemed like they pulled all the stops to do their presentation. They appeared very eager to get this job. And Delbrook just seemed more like, and even their format of the interview was more like a conversation instead of presentation, then followed by question and answer session. I liked Delbrook's presentation, I think, slightly more. However, I think when you look objectively at the two companies, it seems like Commodore's ability might be more suitable for this particular application. I like the fact that they have technologies that, like the ground penetrating radar, I think might be good because it would give you a heads up on what's out there before you even get in the ground. It's things like that that I think would be a benefit. And I think somebody already mentioned that like educating the public is a big one. And I feel like just based on presentation, Commodore was very prepared, and I think they would do the same show or similar show, quality show for the public. So I'd say they're very close. I really like Delbrook as like a conversation. But I think in this particular case, I'd give preference to Commodore by a hair.
Okay, thank you. Steve, I'm going to let you give your thoughts. And then I'll give mine. We kind of get a two for one here. What do you think?
Okay, I mean, again, I don't want to echo everything that everybody has already said. But I will a little bit. Commodore was obviously the polished group for the interview and the presentation. Delbrook was more maybe laid back, and they even said in the beginning that they preferred interviews to morph into a conversation, which it basically did. Experience, however, was good. I think experience on Commodore's side was also good. I did look through their technical proposals, all 200 and some odd pages. Pretty much the same information was there. Obviously, different setups, different examples, but everything they showed, it shows that they could handle the project. I did notice one thing though, that Delbrook had the project completing in November, where Commodore had it out to December. Small item, but that was one difference. And again, part of what we need on this project is the community outreach. And like others have said, I think Commodore has it a little bit over Delbrook, because you really need to have a good presentation if you're going to be educating the public. I'm not saying that Delbrook probably can't do it, but that wasn't how they formatted their interview and their presentation to the committee. So again, I agree. I think both can do the project. Is there advantage for Delbrook being in town already? Possibly. They know town officials. But I mean, I think any contractor that comes in will eventually know your town officials. So again, leaning to the fact that we do need to sell this project, I'm going to have to probably give it to Commodore again, slightly, but it would be Commodore.
Okay. And I'll kind of echo the same thing. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, all other things being equal, gut feeling, who would you like better, coming out of that? And I thought the Commodore presentation was, just a little bit better. I mean, as I said to the group the other night, I mean, we've had successful projects with both firms. We're currently working with both firms. So, as far as, knowing that they can complete jobs, yep, we know they can. We were working with them now, not the easiest of jobs, we have jobs, we have challenges with both for, we have challenges on projects with both firms, and both are stepping up and doing the hard work to kind of get through the difficulties and, get the project to the end. And that's what you want, right? It's in the end, it's, can you work with the group that's there? And I think the answer is yes. But I too would kind of go to the selling the project, the people who we need right away, to jump in, essentially this week, right? We have an approved amendment from town meeting, or article, I should say, to fund this. We just have to sign a contract with them. I think both are ready to jump in, but I think what we need more of maybe what Commodore has to offer right now. So hearing that, I mean, it seems like it's pretty, across the board, Commodore gets the nod. Commodore is ranked as kind of in first right now. So, and it's unanimous the way I see it, and the way it came across. So, unless anybody has any, raise your hand if I've got you all with Commodore as 1 and Delbrook as 2, acknowledging that it's close, but you have to put one first, you have to put one second. So,
Yeah, and one thing I'd like to add, and just having be an individual that's, usually on the contractor side of that table, yes, we agree that Commodore was a little bit more polished, but we're not hiring them to be a presenter. It will be helpful when we have to certainly sell some aspects to the town and the public, but remember that, especially for the superintendents that are with the boots on, are typically building things. Presenting in front of groups is not their forte, and it's certainly not something that those individuals do every day. And I don't want to put too much emphasis on just the presentation itself and the pretty pictures and colors and books that were put together.
100%.
But I mean, I agree with your sentiments, John, but I just wanted to kind of sort of highlight that because we're really hiring them to build the building, and the most important people on the job is, the superintendents in the field getting that done along with their project manager. So just some food for thought there. It's not disagreeing with you, John, just kind of.
No, Mark, it's all very good. Very good feedback. In fact, okay, so we're going to close that piece. I'm going to move into the cost piece, and it was really interesting because the firms took different approach to kind of end up kind of the same. The number's different, and I'll show you in a minute. But Commodore had more of their cost for the project, for their management of the project, in project management, whereas Delbrook had less in project management, but more on superintendents, the people in the field. The question is, do you need multiple superintendents? And again, this is something that, let me be clear, in this process, in the price piece, we basically gave them a $14 million budget number, which is kind of where we all hope that this thing comes in at the end of the day. But we need to give them a baseline, because they're going to give us prices based on a budget number, and a duration. So basically, we told them, the $14 million number, and then what they did is they gave us a price for performance and payment bonds. Okay, what's, and what is that on $14 million worth of work? They gave us their insurance cost on $14 million worth of work. Then they gave us their lump sum general conditions. We told them 16 months, I believe, is what we told them. They give us a price based on that, and basically they say, we're going to give you a project executive for this amount of time, or superintendent, based on portions of a month times the duration. They look at the schedule, and to Steve's point, one of them showed a little closer to 16, one of them showed a little closer to 17. But what we do when we kind of put that out there is we normalize it. We kind of say, okay, let's go. 17 is probably the right number. We'll carry 17, so that remember, we're agreeing to a kind of rates for general conditions based upon a duration. So if in the end the final schedule is 17 months, well, we kind of know what that nut's going to be. The other thing they price for us is the pre-construction fee. How much are you going to charge us to get us to town meeting? Okay, those 4 months, including an estimate, for that. And then the last thing they price for us is a percentage of CM contingency. And CM contingency is a contingency that's carried within their guaranteed maximum price. Some firms bid that a little thinner, some bid it a little fatter. That's everything they bid. Okay, what we are not allowed to negotiate, no matter what, is the fee. Okay, that's the last piece. They say, we're going to charge you X on 14 million. Okay, and it's based on a percentage, and we drive that down to a number to be able to get an idea of how close are they, what does that mean to Cohasset, in the framework of a GMP. we can negotiate any other number on here except that fee, okay? So I'm going to share my screen now and kind of show you all kind of where this is played out. All right, so can everybody see this? Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So we'll kind of walk you through it. So, okay, so what we do, you know, there were 3 addenda. Did they acknowledge it? Yes, both acknowledged the addenda. Performance and payment bond. Commodore said 94,000, Delbrook said 89. Okay, so Delbrook was $5,900 lower. Insurance on 14 million worth of work, 196 versus 193. Delbrook was a little lower. Lump sum and general conditions. Okay, this general conditions is obviously this is a bit of a separation here. Okay, $340,000. To me, this is something that if, you know, in the end, after you look at this, you say, well, we still like Commodore better. I can go back and talk to Commodore about this and try to, you know, work this number down into a, you know, more of the Delbrook range. And, you know, again, we'll talk more about that in a second. The CM fee, what are you going to bill me as a percentage for profit? The fee is the profit they make on the job. 3%. Okay, so basically 420,000 versus 413, $7,000 difference. So far the real big difference is this general conditions number, you know, right here. Then we get in, so up to that point, you know, if you add up all these different pieces, you're at 1.93 versus 2.3. Where the numbers really separate is the CM contingency. Okay, Delbrook went into this really thin at 1%. That means when they give us a GMP for the job, they're only going to carry 1%. Let's say that GMP was truly 14 million. You know, you can see here, this is a $790,000 difference. Now, a couple of things here. You know, clearly, if you still like Commodore, I go back and I talk to them about this. But also, I'll tell you, if you go with Delbrook, what I'm probably going to do is that's really thin. You know, what I would do is if they're only carrying 1%, I might tell you, I want you, Cohasset, instead of carrying, you know, an 8% contingency on the budget, I might say carry 10. So even though Delbrook is lower, I'm going to tell you that's a really low contingency for the CM to carry. I'm going to tell you as the owner to carry more outside of the GMP. So in the end, are they really that much further apart? If because of that discrepancy, I'm going to suggest to you as the client to carry more in the overall project budget. So this is, you know, I think we can get them closer on the general conditions, but this is kind of the, you know, this is where the number really separates. And if you look at that, you know, you're looking at a, you know, over $1 million difference. So, you know, the question becomes, do you have me go and try to take a crack at this number and see what we can do? And again, this is public info at this point. This is essentially this is open. I'm going to show them, you know, Delbrook's numbers and see what we, you know, see what we can do here on this. And then this, you know, if we go with Delbrook, I'm going to tell you right now, I am not comfortable at a 1% CM contingency on a renovation rehabilitation project. I'm going to make you carry a bigger percentage to offset that on your budget. So it's not as big as yes, it's a savings in the GMP portion of the budget, but I'm going to make you add more to the bottom line to maybe not take you to 4%, but probably add a couple of points on there to get you, you know, 3 versus 4. Again, you won't see that in Delbrook's number. You'll see that kind of in the overall project, just because, you know, I almost want to also question Delbrook on why are you low on a renovation project? Like, that's, to me, you know, you bid when we see thin CM contingencies, usually it's because the contractor has a lot of experience with the plans of the designer. They've done multiple projects. And Phil, has Delbrook done a bunch of your work? Natalie's saying no.
No.
I'm sorry. I didn't know if you were talking to me or not.
Oh, sorry,
there.
Phil O'Brien. Sorry.
No, I have not worked with Delbrook.
Okay, so as an example, where we were bidding a project and it was a different CM, and the CM had done 12 projects with this particular designer in the Worcester area. So they felt really comfortable knowing those designs and saying, you know, we can minimize our CM contingency. And again, the CM contingency, just so you're clear, guys, if we went ahead and did a $14 million GMP, and in that GMP, $1 million was, you know, Commodores, and 258 was Delbrooks. At the end of the day, any unused contingency is yours. It's money that falls back out of the GMP when done, if not used for any of the list of approved purposes of a CM contingency. So this is different than the fee, right? This is the what if money. So, you know, in the Commodore side of the column, you know, it's a little bit higher than we'd like to see, but I understand why. And on the Delbrook side, it's lower than I want to see, and I'm going to make you add to the other parts of the budget. Does any questions? Does that make sense to everything that I've shown you so far? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I guess my question for you is, you know, coming out of this, the technical piece, we have Commodore 1, Delbrook 2. Coming out of the price piece of this, we've got Delbrook 1, Commodore 2. So, you know, the question is do you want me to, I mean, the prudent thing is, I think, to take a crack at Commodore and see what they can do with the pieces of the number that they can do anything with. And then I come back to you with that. Because otherwise you are making the decision solely based on price, but are you? Because, and this is the benefit of the CM at risk process, right? You get to look at it cost blind, qualifications. You say Commodore has an edge, but now you've got Delbrook's number crushing Commodore's number, frankly. But I think part of it is artificially crushing it, because I think I'm gonna make you carry money on another line in the budget to kind of offset some of that, but they are lower. Michelle?
So if we did increase Delbrook's value to cover additional contingencies or increase our number,
yeah,
and I don't want to put you on the spot, but what do you think the number would be? What would be the true delta? Because right now we're seeing over $1 million. Is the delta really only $700,000 that we're looking at? Or is it still $1 million?
No, it's a great question. So, you know, frankly, what I would say is that, you know, this 258, again, we're not going to increase their number. I'm going to tell you, you know, I'm going to put a number down here, additional contingency. And again, this is going to be something that I would put, you know, kind of in the overall project budget, you know, where I add up our fees and Phil's fees, and we kind of build the whole thing, furniture, all that stuff. What I would say is you know, your construction contingency, I'm going to tell you to maybe carry an additional 500,000, you know, to kind of, because I think 1% is really low, you know, and that gives us very little wiggle room if there's a bust in the plans. Now that being said, it also, you know, the positive to this is for you as the town, you know, it does put the risks, you know, again, CM at risk, puts some more of the risk on Delbrook, you know, and then, you know, they burn through that CM contingency too quickly. It puts us in a situation where they hit their GMP sooner. Guys, let me go on mute for a second. I apologize.
Hey, John.
Someone's trying to break in.
John.
Yes.
John, quick question for you. On the cell formula for the estimated contingency fee, based on the 14 million?
No, it's 14.
Plus a couple of other cells, but
yeah, no, it should be. Hang on a second.
I think you might have a keystroke.
Yeah, no, it's 1% of the 14 million plus 1% of the CM fee. I'm sorry, cost of the work. Hang on 1 second.
Here's the fee, sorry, fee is on 14 million. GCs, GRs.
I'm just looking at a 24 million number in there.
Yeah, no, it's gonna make the delta worse. Thank you, good, but their numbers, that's a keystroke error on my side, sorry. There you go. So that's again, apologies guys, that both numbers were showing 24 million in the cell, not 14. It's still a delta, okay? So, maybe this number is, so we're not, again, we're under the million total, apologies there. This does certainly put the risk on Delbrook, right? If we were to go with Delbrook at this CM contingency, again, whatever the final GMP is, their contingency is going to be 1% of that. So if the bid comes in higher, okay, it comes in at 18 million, it's going to be 1% of that 18 million. But again, the delta is Commodore's got 4%, they've got 1%. What that does is it does shift some of the risk onto Delbrook. The question is, does it put us in an adversarial situation sooner, because we're going to be arguing, put it in CM contingency, you burn through it, and all of a sudden, they're at their GMP, they're at their maximum number. So does that put us in a situation? I mean, I can also go back to Delbrook and ask the question, why so low? What makes you feel good enough to put a number that's I mean, that's as low as I've seen one put in from a percentage standpoint. I've never really seen it below 1, but I don't see it at 1 very often. Maybe 2, maybe 3, usually. So it is a low number. So Michelle, back to your question. I mean, to me, there's room to discuss here. Okay, in the GCs, they approach the job a little bit differently. Can you do it with less and can you do it for less and not see a difference in the team that you presented? And maybe and that's where you have good back and forth. Well, listen, you want me to cut X hundreds of thousands of dollars, I need to take a so-and-so away. Okay, well, is that really a problem? The PX, they're heavy on the PX time on this job. But PX, do you replace that with more PM time and less PX time, which is project executive, which is at a higher rate? That's part of the discussion, and that's okay to negotiate and see where they come. And then
They can also take a look at their schedule too, right? Because Commodore's got 14 months versus Delbrook at 13. So you've got a whole month of general conditions at basically $100,000.
Yeah, but you know what? I guess, Mark, my concern there is, and when I looked at this, I kind of brought Delbrook up, kind of to the higher number, because, part of the deal of getting these guys on board is coming up with what's the right approach, right? And I don't want to make a decision on this based on squeezing somebody down to a lower, to a shorter duration that might not work, so I tend more to kind of balance it out, to just show you a little bit lower here. Basically pre-construction for Delbrook was shown at 4 months, Commodore 3.5, that's fine. Construction duration, including abatement demo, one of them was 16.6, one of them was 16. So we kind of averaged it out, and I said, all right, let's run this at 17 months, right, instead. So to kind of bring both of them up to kind of what's that next month, and in the end, let's see where this, make sure all those numbers translated. ACM contingency. It's not much of a difference, because you're really only talking about 0.04 of a month to get to get 16.6 up to 17 and to get 16 to 17. So it's it doesn't really change the numbers too much. But again, then our final The final delta between the two based on 17 months is, 811. So, some of that in the contingency number, some of that is in the GCs. So
On the top three rows that you had, is that number correct on the left-hand side for the general conditions and everything? Because it looks like it's like $400,000 more than it should be. If you go to the top of the page. Okay. Why is it 1,530,000 on the left and 1,187,000?
yeah.
And up above, it doesn't seem like the numbers are that much different. There's 5,000 for the first line. A certain
Because Wayne, so I'll kind of show you the next page. So basically, if you look here, this is a breakdown of kind of how they built their number. Okay, that's purely the firm's input of what they think it's going to take to do it. It's that general conditions number has nothing to do with those percentages up above. It's an indication of how much labor they think they need to run the job. So those other numbers, bond premiums are close between firms. Insurance premiums are close between firms. That next level, this general conditions number is less of a fact and more an opinion. I think I need the following people on the job for this duration, for this period of time to do it. And as you kind of run through it, as an example, project executive, Commodore showed their project executive, at a rate of at 21% of their time at a rate of $172 an hour, whereas Delbrook showed their project executive only 10% of the time at a lower rate. So that monthly number for the project executive time is lower for Delbrook because the rate is lower and the amount of time they're going to put that person on the job is less. Now, if you scroll down to superintendent, you look at superintendent, Commodore carried one superintendent. You look here, Delbrook carried 3. So right off the bat, there's way more superintendent time than there is for Commodore. But okay, at what cost? Delbrook has less project management. So my concern to Delbrook is, well, don't you need a little bit more PM time maybe on this, to kind of balance out, and I mean that kind of from the whole team. So this, kind of scrolling down, you see safety manager, MEP manager, BIM, a project admin, kind of similar. They've got some scheduling time, QC. Commodore has a more robust team across the board, but we're paying for it. If you look at Delbrook has a very heavy superintendent, and to me, if your decision were to move ahead with Delbrook, I'd want to have a conversation about some of the things that are missing. Maybe a little bit more PM time. Do we really need input from 2 full-time supers? We've got 100% of the time for one super, a senior super, and 100% of the time of an assistant super. Okay, that's a lot of time, a lot of money per month, but yet for project management, is there, you've got Commodore, and I don't just mean project management, I mean project management and support. You kind of look at all of the other things that are in there. So, as you comment, Mark, about BIM, everybody does it. But my comment to Delbrook would be, you talked about it, but you don't have anything in here for a cost for it. So are you sure you're going to cover that under your general conditions? So, Commodore is heavier, but I have questions about, kind of that whole, thing you told us in the interview. Your backup doesn't quite match up with it. So if we were going to move ahead with them, I'd want to have that conversation to make sure you're going to cover this stuff for us, right? I mean, again, what goes in the contract is a general conditions amount per month, or that kind of based on the proposal. And then the contract talks about everything they have to do. So in the end, you're going to get, by contract, similar levels of service, but it just worries me that Did you leave it out to make your number low? Or is the role going to be done by somebody else? It's a question I would ask. Whereas on the Commodore side, they kind of hit everything. They kind of have, kind of the numbers you'd want to see kind of sprinkled throughout for the different roles. So.
John, the other question I would ask them, they both companies mentioned the estimating, in-house and out, but I don't see anything here.
Because Natalie, it's a good question, because the estimate is part of the pre-construction. So,
Okay.
when you've got this pre-construction fee here of 65 for Commodore, 50 for Delbrook, that includes the estimate of the project. And we also said in the RFQ that for the pre-construction fee includes the building of the GMP. So any of the calculation to get us to a number is included in this pre-construction. We specifically said in the fee, in the description of the fee, that pre-construction is going to include everything you need to kind of get us through bidding and get us a GMP to bring to town meeting. So I think we're covered there.
Okay. Where would you think they would include the kind of keeping that, hand on the pulse of cost changes and supply issues, etc.?
Moving forward, great question. Great question. That's an excellent question of, as you move ahead in the project, where's your time for estimates, right?
Yeah.
Because here's the estimate section and nobody really kind of put anything in there. Again, the reality is
They both mentioned it.
oh yeah, no question. And it's a good question for both of them. The reality is do I think that every week, I'm picking on the person because it's at the top. Do I think we're going to get, so 40 hours a week, I think I'm going to get 8 hours a day from the project exec from the start of the job to the end? No, somewhere along the way, some of that time is going to get traded off for the estimator. I mean, they're going to have to work to a budget, right? And they're going to either live or die by, did they give us the right number? And did they, if I negotiate with them, did they give up too much? Do they have enough to be able to cover the job? We're going to expect a level of service from both firms to be able to get us through pre-construction, and then with an approval at town meeting, get us through the, construction and closeout of this project. So, because in the end, they get references, they get DCAM, they get a phone call. Did they do a good job for Cohasset? Yes or no? You know what I mean? So that's always important to them. And again, we have a relationship with them on multiple projects. You will now establish a relationship with them. They want to do a good job. Nobody wants to, Delbrook doesn't want to come in and do a great job at the harbor and then bomb town hall. I mean, what does that do for them? Does nothing, right? So again, this is a little bit more about the sausage, how the sausage is made, guys, all of this kind of breakdown. They also give us the breakdown of, I take those labor costs, the kind of bulk for the project. This is another good kind of breakdown so you can see it. This is the total of the monthly amounts, okay? When you kind of look at across the project, you look at Commodore, a ton more project management than Delbrook. You get into superintendents, the breakout of the fee, cost-wise, they're at about $100,000 more than Commodore. So maybe would I like to see a little more project management in Delbrook, or possibly a little less project management from Commodore? Yeah, that's kind of where the back and forth goes in. Commodore specifically had costs for BIM, for quality, for scheduling, for project controls. Money for admin is kind of similar. Commodore included the cost of water in here. Temporary toilets. I don't know how Commodore is getting them so cheap. Maybe they own them. Cost for the trailers. Again, this is stuff that they've put in, and maybe Commodore rents their trailers and Delbrook owns them. And that's why you would see, you'd see a price break such as that. Dumpsters, Commodore is saying, hey, I'm going to need twice as many dumpsters as Delbrook is saying. you know, twice as much for cleaning. You know, it's a renovation project, you know, who's right, we'll see. But again, they're kind of buying this as kind of a lump sum within their general conditions. So if it costs them more for dumpsters, it's not the town's problem. They're going to bump up against their GMP. So kind of a ton of info, guys, and I'm happy to share now that we're done, I'm happy to share the cost proposals with you. I will tell you there's not much more than a set of tables that kind of show these rates and show these totals. This spreadsheet's kind of the comparison tool we'll kind of put together to look at it from a total number, look at it from a rate, so their rates similar, look at it from a, you know, where are their holes and kind of their estimate. You know, someone carries one thing, someone carries another. But, you know, bottom line, you know, Wayne, back to your point, you know, at the end of the day, they just are saying they're going to cost more to manage the job. Whereas these other numbers, CM, bond, the insurance, and then the fee, you know, they're all very close to each other. So the difference between these firms is really Commodore thinks they're going to need to spend more money to manage the project, and they're going to carry more in their contingency, you know, because of what they know about the job right now. Clear as mud, right, guys?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
I mean,
So,
my recommendation would be to let me call Commodore. Let me talk to them. Let me see what I can do with these numbers. What are they willing to move on? What are they not willing to move on? And that's part of the process. Again, the only thing I can't touch is this fee, you know, and again, you know, 2.95 versus 3%, they're pretty close. And again, that's the only thing that's really immovable on this. Everything else is kind of up there for conversation.
Okay, so would it be accurate and fair to say, after you have that conversation with Commodore and Delbrook and anything that either one of them need to review and take a second look at, that after that we can then reconvene and make a final not last minute, but final deliberation and final decision?
Yeah, exactly, Mark. And I would say, you know, we don't have time to book something for, no one wants to meet on Friday, but I'd say if you want to meet on Monday, I mean, I'll have this conversation's tomorrow, you know what I mean? And I'll have the info and I can share it with you guys of what you know, maybe they'll need a little time to chew on it. But I say, if you wanted to reschedule something for just to talk about this for sometime Monday, I think we can, you know, we could do that.
Could you do Tuesday instead?
So sorry, Wayne, the only hesitation with Tuesday is there are two meetings already Tuesday night. And one is a select board, and they're anticipating you coming to them with who you chose. So if we could do it.
To execute a contract. Okay.
How's Sunday work for everybody? Sunday afternoon?
All right, I'll go Monday. Something else early.
And Monday, the 23rd, Michelle, it's really up to this group time wise. I mean, I'm fine from 3 o'clock on. I really, guys, I'm talking, we will need a total of, you know, probably 30 minutes. You know, if there's any, you know, Commodore comes down a little, but did they come down enough? I mean, that's really what we're going to be talking about.
John, I do think it's worth lobbing in a call to Delbrook too, to try to get just a sense for why their contingency is such a low number.
I agree because
I think that's just something to get a better sense, feel that out with them.
I agree. Because
maybe they know something we don't.
No, because no, I'll be honest with you, Garrett, because you know, looking at that delta, that's a $500,000 delta, and I just wouldn't feel comfortable. Like, I would want you to carry something else, which means their number isn't as low as it looks, because I'm going to be increasing your total project budget somewhere else to maybe not to account for the whole thing. They don't have to be equal, you know, because if they had to be equal, we would tell these guys to carry a contingency of 4%, both of them, right? And then you're not really bidding it. It really comes more down to, I'm concerned about a 1% estimate on a job that's a historical renovation. The new piece, sure, you know, it's a little cleaner, but even to the point of, you know, where the new piece butts against the old piece, there's some unknowns there, where the, you know, the stuff we're gonna find in the old, that's a, you know, a missed buyout or something, like that's what that CM contingency is used for. It's used for scope holes. Unexpected stuff, that's not what the CM contingency is for. That would come out of the other contingency line items that we carry. But it's just, this is really thin for a job they really don't know anything about. If they had been following this project for a period of time, or had been involved with pre-construction services with us, or a separate I don't know how we would have done it, but let's say they knew more about the job, or somebody who worked for Johnson Roberts went over and worked for, you know, started working for Delbrook. If there was some reason for more knowledge on the project than anybody has, maybe I could justify that, but it just seems really low. Seems really low. And again, it becomes a risk thing for them, you know, 100%, which is a benefit to Cohasset, but it also, if we run through a contingency and end up at a GMP number right away, it's not the nicest situation, because you basically, anything that comes up as could have been used for CM contingency and you're out of it, it's their risk. The answer is no. And is that the best for a project? You know, that's a question. So
Yeah, that sounds good. I agree that we're willing to have a conversation. I'd like to hear the results of your conversation from both parties, from both companies on that subject.
Sure.
I'm sure there's something there we can learn one way or another.
okay, I will do that, and we'll pick the time for Monday, and I'll report back.
Yeah, does Monday at 3 o'clock work for people?
Does anyone want to meet in person Monday, or you prefer Zoom? How do you want to handle Monday?
I think
I think in person would be great if we can do
I
that.
think so too.
That'd be
Okay.
fabulous. Great.
So, just let me know. I'll have to post obviously tomorrow by whatever time you choose, but, let me know.
Well, so
Let's choose
do we,
now.
so quick question, do we need for Monday, if the only thing we're talking about is the selection process here, do we need the full committee, or do we just need our subcommittee?
Oh, that's a great question, because do you need, the selection committee is basically making a recommendation to the building committee. The building committee is making a recommendation to the select board to execute a contract. So do you need Michelle, do you need the whole committee there to be able to ratify it, or we just?
Nope, just
Oh.
the selection committee.
Well, that's great then.
Because
Yep.
that's, the selection committee is a quorum anyway in itself.
Oh, yeah, good point. Good point.
Now,
That means just we all have to show up, Garrett, Wayne, myself, and Phil.
yeah, I'm fine.
So Phil, you better be there.
What was that?
No tennis, no.
What happened? How do we finance the go ahead now until town meeting, when we don't know if in fact the town meeting, what if it doesn't pass it?
So Wayne, the town approved $200,000 to move ahead with CM at risk.
Right.
And right now, the two numbers that were proposed were 65,000 from Commodore and 50 for Delbrook. You have more than enough money.
Okay, perfect.
That's the only piece of the contract you're paying for. All of these other things that we're talking about and or negotiating, those become memorialized in the contract and only become in effect with an approved vote from the town and a notice to proceed. So you're going to give them this 40-page contract, and they're really only doing, 2 pages of it. And it's written that way specifically. All these things are in there, but you're just moving ahead with pre-construction right now.
Okay, so that should go through selectmen on Tuesday with almost no problem.
No issue, because the funding was approved a year ago.
And if they even less, they'd be happy as anything.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you for that.
All right.
Any other questions for John on that process?
3 o'clock Monday.
No,
When?
can we do later? I mean, If we're doing a special,
Why, do you have to work, Mark?
yeah, some of us have a job.
You're the one that said in person.
I know, but
But what?
So do it in person and online.
Let's just stick to one. The hybrid's really difficult.
What time, Mark, what time works on Monday for you?
I would say anytime after 5:30.
Oh, you pain, my God. That's fine. I can be there. It's fine. Natalie, it's the question is for you. Does that work?
Natalie and I both have a meeting that starts at 5:30 on Monday.
Yeah.
So if you need Natalie there, we could split up. Obviously, a Zoom meeting would be easier for us.
It's probably a short meeting too. So.
Yeah.
Okay. 5:30.
I guess, Michelle, my question is can we dial Natalie in? If we're doing it in person, as a member of the committee, I don't have a problem just calling her. You know, I mean, ideally, anything that's going to change a number, I'm going to tweak these sheets. I'm going to need something in writing from the CM firm updating the number. And I'm going to put it in a summary sheet and, send it to everybody. So, I mean, she doesn't, and I would hope to be doing that well in advance of Monday at 5:30. So I mean, I'm fine just calling her on the phone if everybody else can be in person. Because she's a selection committee, but she's not the building committee, right? So that doesn't mess with any quorum.
Right. No, I'm completely fine with that, but I just heard that they have a meeting at 5:30. So can you still make the meeting for 30 minutes, Natalie?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll just power through without Natalie.
We'll stall for half an hour.
Divide and conquer.
Yeah.
Yeah, smoke and mirrors for half an hour.
Don't look over here.
So is 5:30 good, or do you need later, Mark? Anytime
No,
after
that's-
5:30?
That's fine. That I can make 5:30 work.
All right, so let's do 5:30. We'll do it at Wilcott Commons. I'll post it tomorrow, or the library, wherever. I'll let you know tomorrow.
Okay, great.
great.
Thanks, Michelle.
Very good.
So that will give us something to report to select board on Tuesday night, which is, I don't know what time we're on, but meeting starts at 7. We can look at that. But
That's probably a preferred in person for us then as well,
correct.
or for whoever else has to go.
Yeah,
When this is all done, guys, I will, for Michelle, I'll prepare a kind of a procurement memo that kind of said, stick through the process. Here's what we did. Here's the steps. Here's what we, the final recommendation of the committee, kind of take it through the places that way, with your, your comments about public records. It's a good thing to have to kind of memorialize the process.
okay, that sounds good. I have a couple other things on here. CPC has asked us to meet. I mean, the approach was last month. They were hoping to have something by the middle of this month, the numbers, so that they could start acting on it. Their meeting is Monday night. We've been asked to be at that. It doesn't sound like we're going to have a number for them.
No, it's going to be probably three more weeks, Phil, after that, because we're going to get them on board, and they know, I mean, they have the drawings right at this point. So it's really all of them knew the time frame of getting an estimate kick-started.
Okay, I will let
John,
them.
that'd be a great question to just follow up with them in terms of pre-construction question of
Good call, Mark.
with an award of, let's say, they wouldn't receive an award or at least a verbal until Wednesday of next week at the earliest, right? Based on
From the
meeting.
select to
Right.
go. But
Can we give them a notice to proceed in a letter form before the contract gets signed, and we could send that out as acting on behalf of the awarding authority?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
actually, Michelle, it's a good question, because ultimately, if we know what's happening on Monday, the contract that we know that council reviewed, do they need anything more? Like, what do they, like, I could have the contract ready. Like, what do they need? Does that need to be in prior to Tuesday, a few days? Like, we might not have the answer until Friday. I could prep it on Monday. Like, is there any chance of getting a signed agreement on Tuesday, or just authorization that Chris can sign it later?
There's a great possibility you could get it signed Tuesday.
Okay, so if that's the case, there's no need. Anyway, to Mark's point, we don't need to, whether it's a letter of intent or a contract. Bottom line is we're going to know who our selection is Tuesday night. It's going to be official. You know, if we start on Wednesday, when can you have when can you have an
Yeah.
estimate for us? That's
That'll be
the
important.
question.
That'd be great for us to know how soon these firms can each turn around the estimate. Just I as a public citizen, I jumped on the capital budget call last night, and they're eager to see all of the various requests coming in from different committees and departments. So
I mean, that estimate does that estimate does two things for us. It gets the number for CPC so that they can run forward, and that'll be the document we have to be able to back that up. But then it also gives us the ballpark of, where is this job and what are we doing?
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'd have to go back and look at our timelines here, but with a timeline of when we need to publish the numbers for the warrant and everything, Michelle, and are we going to need to use the number off of this first estimate? And that's the number that we put on the warrant. And anything with a bid in hand.
The bid in hand info becomes real information at town meeting.
So
At
what
town meeting, but it's not necessarily, if the number is slightly tweaked, it's not going to necessarily it's not going to get tweaked for town meeting because we've already had to submit the number.
So we're not, so the way I understand it is we're not going to submit a number for town meeting to be printed in the warrant. So people don't look at the warrant and say, well, wait a minute, you said it was only $15 million. And then we get to town meeting floor. Yeah,
Borrow a sum of money, and we're going to tell them on town meeting
Correct.
floor what that number is.
you'll find out
That's
that sum
great.
of money at town meeting. Yep.
That's great.
And then it might have to then go to be voted on, right? By all the citizens.
At town meeting?
Right. No.
Yeah, town meeting and then a ballot. Wayne.
Yeah, then a ballot vote.
That's good. That leaves us the flexibility of, not getting two numbers out there wide to change. This number that comes with the estimate is going to be for CPC, and then a gut check for the committee to make sure, are you okay where this is trending? Because, and if not, we have work to do over the few weeks. But it also sets us up with the numbers that we need for pre-qualification. It does a number of things for us because we're going to immediately start pre-qualifying trade bidders on the project, and we need to know how much, the electrical, the mechanical, all those packages are, so that the firms that, firms that submit to pre-qualify to bid the job, we know that it's in the right, dollar value of their
So
capacity.
when the warrant gets mailed out, then there'll be no value on it, and so the public won't see a value on the printed warrant that gets sent out in the mail. And that doesn't concern anybody here from.
No, but we're going to have to educate them as to what we think the estimated amount is. However, as part of our public relations campaign, we're going to have a number. And my assumption is we will use this updated estimate. And my question on the updated estimate is, will there be enough detail in there for us to provide CPC with what they need for determining what's appropriate for them to cover?
We already talked a little bit about, I think we can let the firms know because they haven't started yet, right? When they start, we're going to tell them, listen, you need to be able to carve out for us the portions of this estimate that pertain to everything in the historical building, either physically in it or shared space, shared services. And basically, to me, that's a square foot calculation. There's half of the square footage is in the old, half is in the new. Well, then half of the heating system is in the old as well. So that's, some of it's going to be easy to draw the line, and that's going to be, we'll have to work with CPC on that. But yes, we will make sure that that estimate is detailed enough. And frankly, their takeoff will be detailed enough, because these are 95% construction drawings. Like this isn't an SD estimate where we're making a lot of assumptions. This is legit bidding documents that are, almost done, and they're going to be finished, over the next, weeks, as we kind of, that's kind of the next piece of the discussion is, clarifying the scope and the renovated portion of the building, and, all of that. But that's going to come into greater detail. And to the extent that that stuff's not in there, that's where you work with the CM and say, okay, listen, you gave us an estimate. We didn't carry refinishing the floors, as an example, in the existing town hall, the second floor. What will we carry for that? And we would make sure that we add kind of those one-liners in there, for scope that isn't finished yet. And then Johnson Roberts has to draw it, kind of get it all into that final package before that goes out on the street for bidding in March.
Are we going to have a or has there already been one that I missed about kind of finishes and like even the windows? I mean, we talked about what the options for the windows were, but was a decision ever made as to what we wanted to do as far as restoring the existing ones or putting new ones in, and what level of energy
Phil?
efficiency we were going to try and achieve and all that?
So let's do.
We did have a meeting like that a month or two ago, where a lot of others had some very similar questions, and we went over all those things at that meeting. It was a couple
And
months ago.
decisions were made? 'Cause I
Well,
don't.
decisions were either made or confirmed for those things.
So what are you
are we
doing?
Pardon me?
Which direction are we going?
I'm sorry, you're getting kind of broken up, Mark.
So which direction on the windows are we going then?
Oh, so what the documents are showing right now is a replacement window as part of the base bid, and then restoration as an alternate. Now, we haven't numbered the alternates yet. That's going to be part of what we'll do with this final estimate and working with your CM. And then you may decide that you're not interested in that alternate once they give you the price. So you may say, we can't afford that or whatever. I don't know, but that's the way we left it. And that's the way we've documented it.
Wait, I just have a quick question. So Carolyn, you don't remember that conversation. I don't remember that. Mark, do you not remember having that meeting?
I don't remember the final decision there. I remember we talked about it. I remember we talked about the grading outside, but I don't remember some of these issues being closed.
I don't either. Does anyone else remember closing those who's on the committee?
I think that was a decision by Johnson Roberts on the direction of the windows. I know we talked about it a little bit, but I'm not sure that our opinions was really assessed on that. There was any deep discussion on exactly what the windows were going to look like when they were completed. I think we talked.
I think though that the way he's describing it, if we're getting prices on 3 different options, certainly the price is going to influence what we think the appropriate choice is going to be. So, so perhaps we don't have to make a decision until after we see the comparative costs. But there are lots of other, are there just going to be allowances as far as fixtures, and are we painting the wood? Are we going to have wood grain panel? I mean, there are things that can, what grade of carpet, there are things that can make a big difference in the cost that I don't think we've talked about yet.
Yeah, there was that meeting that, as I said, a couple of other folks expressed some very similar concerns, and we had a meeting a month or two ago, and I'm going to have to dig through my notes and find them so I can tell you what day that was when we had that. And I would assume your minutes would show a lot of the discussion that we had as well, but
And
I can share mine with you as.
So I also think, but I also think that there was a concern that there wasn't enough scope yet carried in the historical building. And I think, and we've been kind of, you know, focused more on getting the CM and getting all that in place, and then getting the CM on board so that, you know, when we stand in that historical building, yeah, there might be some stuff in there that hasn't been carried yet. And the best thing to do is to get the CM on board and say, okay, have a meeting as soon as they're on, go out there and say, okay, are we refinishing the floors? Are those in the plans? Yes or no? Yes. Okay, don't worry about it. It's in the estimate. Okay, what are we doing on the walls here? Well, what do you want to do to the walls here? I think that we still need to have that meeting to come to a final decision on what we're going to do with some of the other stuff. Like Phil and company definitely carried a piece of work. And I think, you know, Wayne and others brought up a concern months ago that I don't think it's enough. Like we need to do more to this old building to get more people invested, because you're going to build this great new addition, and then next door people are going to be like, and you didn't fix this. And I think that that's very valid feedback. But I think that what's lost is that, and in fairness to Phil, I think some of these things were talked about a long time ago. Okay, when we had a budget that was 10, that became 12, that became 14, like there were things like he had carried X. Good God, we don't have enough money, and the money keeps going up. I do think that we need to circle back. Okay, there've been a lot of meetings. There's been people who haven't been at some of the meetings. I think the ultimate goal here is to get the CM on board and then make sure that we are all on the same page about the historical portion of the building. We're not going to bid, you know, for a couple more months, and there is still work to do. And if there's things that, you know, we think we should add, we've got the designers here, they can add them. And we've got, you know, a CM on board who can point and say, here's what it's going to cost. But I think when we get this estimate, it's going to give us the baseline of where we are, but very quickly we need to have a discussion of what do we want to add. You know, we talked about that community room being a place for food or a place for performances. Well, right now there's a couple of light fixtures going on the ceiling. If you want to talk about, you know, redoing the lights to make it a stage, that's a different discussion than, you know, we want to keep it as a place that could maybe just serve more for meetings, or do you want to do both? Those discussions haven't finished yet. And they were, in my mind, they were put on hold until the CM came on board so they could help us price those things kind of in real time.
Okay,
Yeah, but
I
they
just wanted
also-
to see
we-
what this estimate was gonna, how firm this estimate might be.
It's going to be a pretty good estimate, Carolyn, from the standpoint of what's on the drawings, right? But if we're talking about adding more to the drawings, we're going to have to kind of, it's the estimate plus the supplement, right? So we're going to, I think, as soon as the CM's on board, we don't wait for the estimate, okay? I think we have this meeting with the CM as soon as they're on with Johnson Roberts in the field and talk through in the space, guys, not on a Zoom, to kind of run through what's carried and what's not, so that everybody can feel comfortable before we go on the PR campaign, that we're comfortable of what's currently in the scope, or what we need to add to it, and what that does to the bottom line. I mean, you know, the reality is it's kind of a weird thing that can happen sometimes. A job at 14 million that doesn't carry enough renovation fails, but a job at 15 and a half that does a lot more to the historical piece maybe passes with more support, because people go, wow, you're going to do this to that, right? And that's I think what we have to nail that down. And that, in my mind, that hasn't happened yet, and we need to kind of wrap our arms around the historical piece a little bit more.
But it's
I
it's
think-
concerning that we've been working on this for a while, and we've addressed these, right? We've talked about the acoustical. Didn't we hire an acoustical consultant to look at?
Yeah, we did, and they said that we don't need to. We can put some clouds up there, and that'll be enough. And Phil's carried that. He did talk about that. We do not need a fancy. We didn't even need to spend the money. We authorized it, but then we never needed to spend it because the guy said, "Here, just do this." So
And what about all the grading concerns that were brought up outside with the sidewalks? I feel that was an issue that has been talked about at length, but we haven't closed it out. We haven't dug into that one and seen any report back on that.
We actually had talked about the grading and the access issues a couple of times over the last couple of years, and we've gone back to our engineers a couple of times, and we haven't changed the drawings based on our most recent discussion, because we were pushing towards a 95% set so we could get it done. The scope of that change is dramatic, and according to our civil engineers, there isn't enough horizontal space to make up the vertical differences at the front of the building in order to be able to get handicap parking in on the street. Handicap parking on the street also would not preclude having to have handicap parking on site as well. In other words, if you have handicap parking in a public way, it doesn't absolve you from having to meet the code and having handicap parking spaces on site as well. So we'd have to provide them in both places. There isn't really enough room to do it in the front and still get accessible entrance and exit to your existing front door.
Okay, I totally disagree with that. And I've taken pictures, I've done measurements and everything else, and the grades are not out.
Then we need to, guys, we have gone back and forth on this. What we need to have is the civil engineer on site with Wayne, with Phil, and let's put this to bed, because we can't keep rolling around and go to bid, and he never listened to me and he doesn't know what he's talking about. We need to put this to bed. We have a design professional who has an opinion. Wayne, it's his stamp on the drawings. At the end of the day, if he says he can't do it, we're going to have to live with it. Phil, Wayne's been bringing this up. We've got to get the civil, and we've got to get him on site, because this is a big issue. And if it's going to cost a bunch of money to make the changes, it's going to have an impact, and everyone needs to be fully informed. So if we can, and having the CM on board is a plus as well, because from a cost of work, we're paying to get these guys in for pre-con. This is some feedback I'd love to have from the CM as well, because there may be well, hey, wait a minute, maybe you could do it this way that we're not thinking about. So what I would suggest is let's make the decision, let's get them on board, and Wednesday next week, you're in, good. That following week, I think we need to have a meeting with the civil on site, and maybe on the same day as what we get a subset of this group, whoever wants to be there, to come kind of run through the current scope of the historical building, and kind of come up with the what if list. Okay, the stuff that's not in there, and kind of drill down. Michelle.
So I agree with everything you're saying, except for a subgroup. The whole committee needs to be present to make these decisions, because we can't have someone not there to say, I don't know, I wasn't there, I don't understand. We need the entire committee to be there, make a decision as a committee, and move forward. It's just my 2 cents.
We do not have a lot of time. We are out of time, which is why it's becoming more urgent. These things anything that's been on the table here that's been discussed in the past, we need to be able to move past it, close it. It's either yes or no.
Right. This is our final sprint. So we just need to come together and.
We can't, we need to make sure that we show up at town meeting with a full alignment here in this group as to why we made the decisions that we did. And whether it be grading or lighting or acoustical panels or windows or whatever it may be. So it has to be finalized, and we all have to be comfortable.
If we're going to, select board's going to say yes on the 24th, I'm going to notify the contractor officially on the 25th. The following week, Monday the 30th, I would make as a suggestion to, get, Phil, obviously, your schedule, this, if we could talk to the sub-consultant, see if we can get them out there. To me, that would be the day, when I call the CM to say you're in, and by the way, we need someone at a meeting on Monday, we're going to be spending some time talking about potential site issues, some feedback from you guys on that, and then also talking about some scope that we want to add to this estimate that you're working on, kind of in theory, here's some added stuff for, to Carolyn's point, are we going to refinish the wall paneling, or we're going to paint over it? What are we going to do with plaster? Like, kind of, big picture, numbers so that we can get order of magnitude numbers to add to that estimate that they will be digging into, because it would be wonderful to get the estimate and get these other prices at the same time, so that we can have an informed decision of, here's what's on the 95% CDs, and then here's the gap work that we're gonna, or the ad work that we're gonna, put on there as well.
Steve? You got your hand up?
Yeah, I do. Just a couple things. And yeah, I think, we've had so many stops and starts on this. I think everybody gets a little fuzzy on what we've spoken about before. So I think having a one rather large meeting potentially to go over what's in the scope and making sure everybody knows what's in the scope is a good idea. A couple things I want to add though is we got to make sure that we were going to address whatever we're going to need for security, for audiovisual, for FF&E, which is probably going to be out of the scope of the CM unless we're going to make them turnkey for everything. But what's typically installed by the owner under a state bid list, we got to know that too. And I'm sure we got the infrastructure for everything, but we got to start thinking about, for town meeting, whether we've got proper costs for those items. The other thing for town meeting, and we got some time on that, but we're going to have to come up with whatever the taxpayer impact is going to be, because that's going to be a question. And I think Jennifer probably can put that together, and maybe it's a little early, but because she'll be looking at, what kind of interest rates and so forth, but, and what's the debt exclusion going to be. But that is, I just came off of a special town meeting for another town. That was one of the major questions. And there was a couple slides with, the assessed value based on an average, home assessment, but it had everything below it and everything above it. So the people in the audience could sort of zero in and know what they were going to pay, on a yearly, / monthly, what their wallet impact's going to be. And that's going to be a big question for it. And that's what they're going to want to know. So we're not, if we're not going to have the amount in the warrant, we really need to have, we may want to think about that.
So Steve, sorry, Jennifer's already modeling based on that $20 million number that we started with.
Yep.
So she'll be able to plug and play any number that we put in there. She's modeling it with several other things, but for town hall, she's using a number of 20 million for right now.
Okay.
And I think that's something that's going to need to be socialized, as part of our PR campaign. It's not something we can just bring at town meeting and hope that it passes. I think personally.
I'll tell you what we did on the other project. This was not a CM at risk. It was a straight design bid build. But as we came to the special town meeting, and we actually went to town meeting with a bid in hand, but prior to that, we were using an estimate to sort of prep and making sure that everybody knows this is an estimate, this is a placeholder. We are going to come to, town meeting with a bid in hand so that we could lock that number in. And, we opened bids on the 22nd of December and town meeting was the 11th of January. So, it was just sort of a short time period, especially with the holidays. But it, having put something out there with all the caveats seemed to work, because it did pass at town meeting. So but the numbers were out there. People knew what a range was going to be. And then we locked it in.
I think that's important.
Ballpark on a full meeting on site with engineers, is that, can we just kind of stick that like part of a month or this month or next month? Or
No, I like what, Phil, I like that meeting on Monday, the 30th. Like, let's the sooner we have it, the better chance we have of capturing those costs in the estimate, so that we can include them, one, with CPC if we're going to do it, and two, It just gets us, gets this overall group kind of an understanding of, okay, where are we close to the 20? Like, are we at 21 or 23? Like, you know what I mean? It's better to have, even if it's not all an estimate on drawings, like I'll take that small amount of extra work and add it on top, and we're good. Like I think it's better that we have it sooner than later if we can.
Okay, so that's full group with engineer on site.
So I don't want to be difficult, but is there any way to do it Tuesday, the 31st versus the 30th?
Yeah, sure. I'm just trying to, I'm going with the earliest possible available, Michelle.
No, I understand. And I just want to make sure everyone would be available on Tuesday, the 31st, if that's the date.
And frankly, Phil's got to check with the civil guy too. So I
Right.
mean, like, I think let's, I'm good with the 31st.
Okay, great. Just trying to get it. out there.
Steve, does that work for you? Steve Kirby?
You're on mute, Steve.
I was just looking at my calendar. It seems to be open, but I think there might be a meeting that I haven't put in my schedule yet, but
Nope, not our problem.
Yeah.
What time is this?
well, I guess what time is it going? I mean, this is a day meeting, a night meeting. I mean, it's,
We have to be daytime if we're going to look at the site,
how does that work for,
like a late afternoon. or
Mark.
something. Who?
and
Who's that?
I can't make that.
Can I just call somebody? Like,
You want to phone a friend, Mark?
yeah, phone a friend.
Okay.
well, I mean, I sort of envision this as maybe being almost like a page turner to a degree. I mean, yeah, the civil, we want to have that discussion, but if we're going to be looking at everything, it's almost like a page turner type of meeting, at least through the architecturals.
Steve, it's a page turn for the historic side of the building, right? So you are talking about, you're going through the architectural.
Are we locked in on the addition too? I mean, like we said, now's the time, everybody's.
Well, I don't know if you have time for a full page, we're trying to the extent we can get what it can get through, we can get through. I mean, that's the idea, right? That we need to stop, to your point, we need to stop we need to get everybody on the same page. Like,
Right.
and it's because we need to stop we need to answer all the questions. Let's put it that way. And it sounds like there's still questions. And
Now we've
that's
issued,
okay.
we've issued the drawing set to everybody, so you do have the ability to take a look at, if you haven't already, it's out there to look at the set. I mean, sometimes it's a little unwieldy on a laptop, but you can get a little bit of, or you can get the scope of what's included in the documents now, but it may help to come to the meeting with questions.
I think it might be wise to, there would be way too much to cover if we suggesting a page turn. I assume that goes through all the plans. There's a real hit list that I think that we have concern, which is like the windows, the elevation,
So could we-
light fixtures inside, that kind of thing, and the finishes on the new town hall. There might be a short list that we could at least start out with, and maybe each one of us could put one of those questions forward, so we could at least start with that.
I know there was an email that came out a while ago about some of the questions, in particular on the finishes. So that may have been partially responded to, and maybe not fully, but we can backtrack on that.
Is there a way to, I don't know, put the list together of the items that need to be reviewed and sort of come up with the best plan for each one? I mean, if we're talking about the civil stuff and the elevations, maybe we can appoint a representative, Wayne, maybe to meet with the structural engineer and the architect, and we can kind of look at some of these things. Do we need the full committee there with the engineers to look at the grades and look at some of the math there? Or can we sort of divide and conquer some of these, and some of them that are group decisions here, we kind of can evaluate as a group, whether it be in person or Zoom? I mean, it's just, I sense Josiah had a challenge getting there and during the daytime hours, as do I. I don't want to speak for you, Josiah, but it sounded like
Yeah,
yesterday
I
you
can't.
were.
I can't make
It
it.
basically means taking the day off for somebody like me. It's just, it's not easy.
I guess then to Michelle's point, I mean, I understand the benefit of getting everybody there, right? But Mark, I mean, if you send your concerns, I mean, you're closest, you're one of the closest to this, you know, you've been through this, you've had feedback, like, as long as you get your feedback there, I mean, I think that's fine. I mean, obviously for the site issue, you know, I want, you know, Wayne, I want Wayne there because I want to get this answered. As far as the stuff on the inside, I don't, you know, as far in the historic piece, I mean, if you can't be there, Michelle, I mean, I'm not concerned as long as, I think as long as we have some other folks there, it's really about pricing. It's asking a question and pricing, you know what I mean? And getting that done. Like, I get it. I mean, I don't think everyone needs to be there, but I understand why Michelle is saying, you know, everybody should be there if they can.
Yeah, I just think the more decisions we're making in silos, the more difficult it is to move this project forward. I think as a committee, the more decisions we can make as a committee, the clearer the
Well,
picture is for everybody. That's
so-
the only reason I'm suggesting it.
No, so here's a suggestion. I mean, ultimately, if you did the walk, if you got the site, if you got the civil guy there on, say, you know, you're saying Tuesday in the afternoon, okay? Like late in the afternoon. And then there's a building committee meeting that evening, you know, and the stuff that we're going over is this, looking through the historical portion of the building. Maybe that's the way to do it. So you get the sub-consultant there to answer these site questions. Everyone doesn't have to be there. To Mark's point, it's a few people. And then that evening, you know, the guys that have to, you know, don't take work off, but then come to be part of the discussion about the scope of work in the historical portion of the building. Page turn, whatever. That way, you know, the majority of the committee, you know, the committee's there. People understand the decisions. You know, boom. You know, we've done both, but not, you know, we kind of do it towards the end of the day. That way, we can just have a relatively normal meeting time for Tuesday evening.
Right, so Sybil would come around 4 o'clock, so they'd have the daylight hours to walk the site, and then maybe 6 o'clock for the meeting
That's
for
what,
everybody else.
Well,
Steve, I'm gonna need
Since we're-
you at that meeting, Steve, if you can. I've got a conflict for the evening, but that's as long as one of us is there.
Should I go ahead and hire my own civil engineer to do a plan that represents what I think this
No.
should be so that we can see a picture of it? Or are we gonna just be, I'm gonna go there and he's gonna say, well, no, I don't know what we're gonna do. I don't know. How does that work?
I mean, Wayne, you've hired design professionals for this. You have a disagreement with them. You know, you're not a civil, you know, are you a civil engineer?
No,
I'm asking, I wanna make sure that you're, like, you shouldn't have to go hire somebody. And I understand your
Have to
concerns.
get a single thing done the way I'm doing it now. Nothing. My relationship with the architect is one that they've not gone in on any single thing that I've said. And the things that I'm saying is handicapped, we're gonna have a sign out at the street that says handicap parking over here in order for you to go in the front door of the town hall. Things we don't realize that the town hall parking lot is used on Thursdays for the different events there. It's used on Sundays by things. The sidewalk that they put in doesn't even go out to the sidewalk that we have today. It's going to be a separate one. Things like that don't make sense. So in other words, you think that because you're parked in the parking lot, you're only going into the town hall. You're actually going into the common of the town. And I think those things should be highlighted. That's my point about that item.
No, fair point. I guess
And I
guess But you haven't had a chance to speak to the civil consultant either. I mean, I don't think you should have to hire one, but I do think we can have the conversation.
Right, but if the architect says, I don't want you to do, you keep this over, this is the way I want it. How do I combat that? Because that's what's happened so far. They have not taken any of this input. And if they want to that, please do.
Yeah, I'm happy to, I've already sent an email to my civil engineer. I'm gonna see if we can get him on site. I told him the week that we're interested in doing it. Once we get the date nailed down, I'll see if I can, there's a couple of people over there that could come and answer, that are familiar with the project and that could answer these questions. And so I'm feeling pretty good that given the amount of time that we have between now and then, that we can get at least one of those folks to show up and go through this and answer the questions.
And
At the end of the day, we're all gonna get in our cars and drive away, and this is gonna be your town hall. I want the town hall to be something that you and the rest of the community want.
Right.
We're not designing this for ourselves. And if I'm advising you that the civil engineer said that it's problematic to make that work or does not work, that's based on the best information that I have from my civil engineer. If there's a different way to look at it and we can come to an agreement about how that works and we can get it done by meeting on site, I'd say let's do it. I
Right,
want
and-
you all to be happy with what we're doing.
I'm not alone on this. There are other people that feel exactly the same way.
And when I say if we can get it done for you, I mean for you all, everybody in this committee and everybody in your town that you represent.
Correct.
I feel like we work for the community of Cohasset and that you folks represent them. And I represent the rest of my design team. The best that we can do and the best that I can do in a meeting like this is to tell you the best information that I have from my engineers. I'm not a civil engineer either. They told me that it couldn't make it work. I'd say if there's a different way to hash it through, let's see if we can figure it out.
Thank you.
Moving on. Yes. So that's tentative for the 31st, right? We're gonna try to work out maybe go ahead, Michelle.
And I would just say, the civil engineer is primarily going to work with Wayne on these challenges. So if the 31st doesn't work for the civil engineer or anybody else, and we can get him sooner, whenever we can get him and Wayne's available, I think sooner is better if we can get it to work. So.
That's fine with me.
Okay, great. Cool. Anything else for John or Bill or Steve or Natalie? We have a couple other things on our list. I think we're good with you guys.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, guys, thank you. I'll reach out to those CMs and I'll get back to you as soon as I hear back.
Perfect.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank you.
Good
Thank
you,
night.
guys.
Good night.
Good night.
So we talked about CM. We have relocation on here. We have contract. I'd like to talk about, if we could, is the PR firm that we
Yeah.
interviewed last month.
Sure. Yeah,
Um,
so the JGPR, the contract that I have, Phil, I've had 2 conversations with Chris now regarding the contract. We talked about it again this afternoon. He just wants to regroup with Justin Schreier, who's our communications director or specialist, to discuss what his bandwidth would be and to see what he can do. If in fact Justin doesn't have the bandwidth, I think Chris will sign off on the contract. I think he just wants to talk to Justin prior to signing it, but we will have an answer one way or the other tomorrow.
Okay, I think we're anxious to get going. We've had this contract since the 9th of December.
Yep.
It's $9,500. I understand it's expense, but they're ready to go. You know, they do. And Justin was willing to work with them hand in hand with some of the stuff and material he's already put together, which sounded pretty exciting to have all of that power, because we're going to need everything we can possibly get up, moving up the town meeting. But they're willing to do the press releases, letters to stakeholders, parents, communities, et cetera, infographics, design of printed collateral such as information sheets, newsletters, postcards, on and on. They just sound like a great firm. They're already working with town hall, with the town of Cohasset. So they're familiar with us and they're ready to go. So what do you need from this committee to sign them on if it's okay with Chris and Justin tomorrow?
I just think a positive vote that you want to move forward with this firm to help with public outreach. And the public outreach can be just that. It's not to sway them on a debt exclusion. We can't talk about that. You can just simply educate them.
Okay. Carolyn, you were at the meeting. Tucker was at the meeting. Do you want to just throw in your 2 cents, Carolyn?
You basically covered it, but I thought they sounded great. They had 4 members of the team that would be working on it on there, each with different responsibilities. They would do a website that they would keep up to date. They would help us manage social media, current conditions, current status, photography, timeline, FAQ. Yeah, they basically covered everything. And they, to what we talked about earlier with the tax impact, they, on a different thing, actually had a tax calculator that they used where you could put in the assessed value of your house and it would spit out what the tax impact would be for you, that sort of thing. So we all, I think, who were on the call thought they were terrific and would be really, really helpful. And certainly amongst this committee, we don't have the wherewithal to do all the things that they suggested they could do and that are likely to be necessary in order to make sure that the information that is getting spread around town is the correct information so that people can make an informed decision.
Right. Tucker jumped off just as you started talking. I was kind of hoping to hear from him too, but I think his feeling was the same way. It sort of takes the burden off of us for getting all the material together and really puts it with a professional company that's already working with the town to help us educate and keep up to date things like the webpage and so forth. So the rest of the committee here, are you comfortable voting in favor of this so that we can move forward? Just give me a nod and we'll do a vote if you are. Okay.
Yeah, and just to add one sort of comment here is, obviously the town has got quite a PR issue on its hands right now, and it's probably not going away in the next couple of days or weeks necessarily. So Justin's capacity may be impacted significantly by that, and this is a huge portion of educating the public. And if we take a misstep here and we don't educate the folks enough, all of our hard work could be for nothing, for just a short couple of bucks, which would be very unfortunate.
Thank you for that. I'm looking for a positive vote to hire John Guilfoyle Public Relations LLC. Contract is in Michelle's hands. She's going to review it with Justin and Chris, and it's $9,500 that carries us through the project, not just up to town meeting. So it'll help prepare us for town meeting and continue on. It'll give constant updates of the project on our webpage, and really, according to them, pretty much whatever we need for PR. Gert, in favor?
So
Yes,
moved.
in favor.
Oh, sorry, thank you.
Second.
Gert, in favor?
And Tucker's coming back on right now.
Yes,
So.
aye.
Josiah?
Yes, I can't believe the number's so low for the duration of the project, though.
That's a year.
Right, it is. Wayne, you in favor?
Yes, Wayne Sawchuk favor.
Carolyn, you?
Yes.
And Mark?
Or Cameron, yes.
Tucker, are you there?
Yes.
But we were just reviewing Guilfoyle PR, the meeting we had, you, Carolyn, and myself, back in December. And we were just talking about hiring the firm Everybody's a yes vote on this. I'd like to hear your yes vote, and if you have any other input towards that PR firm.
I'm a yes on that.
Good. Okay, perfect. All right, so moved. It's unanimous that we'll hire the firm based on conversation. Do you need a signature on that, Michelle? How do you?
Yeah,
what is-
Chris will sign off on it. He would be the person to sign the contract. If he agrees and signs it tomorrow, I'll scan it over and I'll copy you so you're aware of it and you can start working.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you very much.
Sure.
What else do we have on here? Relocation. Do we have any updates to talk about on relocation for, I assume we're talking about the staff of the town hall while we're working on it.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk to John, well, John was on about this, but I can always regroup with him. I just want feedback from this committee. So we're moving forward with bidding the project. We can't wait till bids are in hand to find space. So it's a little chicken egg here. We need to put out an RFP for space for town hall. That would commence as soon as the project would start. And we would need someone to kind of hold their price for us. And I think we need that price so we have an all-in price when we go to town meeting, unless I'm missing something. I'm trying to figure this out, the sequence of how it's supposed to work. But I feel as though we need to bid that relocation space fairly soon. So we know if they say go at annual town meeting, we have a plan as to where we're going to go. And we have that price incorporated in the overall project cost.
How does it work though? How can you do it until you know that the project passes? Because if you do the RFP and then it doesn't pass, and then you've got a contract for space that you don't need.
It would be contingent on the project vote.
Okay, and that will work for lessors.
I don't know.
It has to, right?
I don't know if it'll work. It's just, that's one of those things I don't.
Well, I guess if it doesn't work, we don't get any responses back. That's the risk. If our ask is so lofty and we may not get a response, right? But-
Right. But I feel as though there's at least two people in town or two business owners in town that would respond to the RFP, given the opportunity.
The problem is there, in most likelihood, there's going to need to have work done before you could occupy space, whoever has the space. And
Right.
I know, I asked Donald Stasko if he would be one of the ones that would bid this, and he said that he'd have a pretty favorable thing and would basically build the area out to the town's specifications, if that's part of the specification, and has plenty of parking and visibility and all that other stuff. But and so with an idea of that's a possible place, the RFP should include something like that, and then how much time it would take to create the space and stuff like that. Then secondly, if this was an emergency, like COVID was and stuff, and you had to vacate the town hall, there are plans to where you send people, like the water department, like wherever it happens to be, in a short-term basis to take care of it. So I think that those are the things that we sort of have to look at a little closer.
So Wayne, I know we're tasking you with quite a bit, but if you would help me with this RFP, I would really appreciate it, because I think there's a lot of things in there. And if you've already had conversations about build out and things like that, I would love your help on it.
And by the way, the end result of that was what I thought was a favorable rate for the amount of space you were getting. And I don't want to, not my best friend or anything like that. But when we went around looking at other places, almost everything we saw was substandard. It was just not, the 760 building, nobody had the amount of space that you wanted and with everything like handicapped accessibility and everything else.
Right.
So,
and how do we dial in what exactly we need, right? I mean, if we've got interim space at the water department, at the library, at Wilcott, just any the DPW, anything in town. So, do we have to find 15 seats or do we have to find 10 seats? So
well,
is that
there does exist, and it's from the emergency management group that
but that's
plan.
but just sorry to interrupt, but that's probably on a shorter term basis, like in an emergency and like a sort of a natural disaster, shorter term emergency, not for 14 to 16 month duration.
No. I'm thinking just of the period of time that you would need in order to have the space that you are going to use for a year ready. You know what I mean?
You're saying just during the build out stage?
Yeah, from the time from the vote to the build out. So we temporary space for 2 or 3 months and then we all move in to this larger space.
I'd say less time than that, but clearly
Okay.
you have to have the phone company come in and put in phones. You have to have, internet brought in. You have to have furniture brought in. You have to have these other things. And that someone has to do a plan, because when we tear down the building, everything in the building is going to go with it unless it's moved or used or taken somewhere else. And I don't even know if there's a plan to vacate the town hall before the contractor starts. We're going to be taking out the existing, data center stuff. We're going to take out, everything, we're going to take out, doors, windows, whatever it is, and not put that stuff back in again. But we're going to have to dispose of it, but more likely we're going to have to use it for the next year and then decide what we're going to do with it next, right? So there has to be that plan, vacating, moving, and everything.
Is that something that the CM might do, or is that something we should be thinking about finding a professional who can help us?
Yeah. Now, Michelle,
I mean,
Michelle was good.
That's a big project.
It is, and it's not you can't be given 1 day's notice and then have people say, well, where are we going to do, where are we going to put this?
Right.
And, you got to look at maybe where the school is, in the basement of the school by the emergency management office. Maybe there's some room there that you could put some things, but you don't want to save something that you're never going to use again.
Right.
And on the other hand, when the thing is finished, you might be having to wait a couple of months to get the furniture in for the new building, because that's not part of our construction contract. That's going to be part of a separate contract, right? I mean, it's going to procure. We need 15 new desks, 15 new chairs, 15 side chairs. We need this. We need screens. We need computer terminals. We need. This is a big deal. And frankly, we got to make sure that we have someone that's almost working on it full time when it's nearing, when it's actually just before construction starts, and then right after or while it's ending, to have everything in the shortest period of time. And
Sounds
frankly,
like a good question for John.
John.
Yeah, so I'll regroup with John tomorrow, but
I'm
Wayne,
sorry.
I don't want to offer you to help me, but I would like for you to help me if you can, just to outline some of these things. So when we're having these conversations, we have it all outlined. I'll get something from John, but your expertise on how much space we probably need and things like that will really come in handy. So if you could work with me on this, I'd appreciate it.
I mean, it's almost like taking the new plan of what we're building, and it's going to have 3 people in it and this and that and stuff. We should be looking, okay, that's what it's going to look like when it's finished, and this is what we're going to need, here. Then that's what we need temporarily somewhere else. you know, if we want, you know, just match what we have. And of course, with all the changes that have happened in the last 3 or 4 years, and the number of people that we've hired at town hall, I'm hoping that what we're building today, that it was designed 3 years ago, 4 years ago, is going to meet our today's needs. And as I go through the town hall and I see new people, and all of a sudden there's 2 ladies and a guy in the treasurer's office, and I'm saying, I didn't know we had a male treasurer right now. No, but he may be the PR person that's in the treasurer's office. Or look, let's go up into the selectman's office. I think there are four people there now, isn't it right, Michelle? Plus.
Yeah, there's 5 of us, including Chris, in that office.
Yeah. And that was
4.
Oh, 2 plus the manager. So wait a minute. And does that mean that we're putting people in there that may not be able to do their jobs as efficiently as if they had separate space over here or did this and stuff like that? You know what? Because it's not a big room and everybody's just there. So if you want to go in and bring a parking ticket, you go to this desk. If you want to talk to Michelle, you make a reservation. And but isn't that something right now, as we're getting closer to start, that we want to just, you know, pull out those plans of what we're using, so that we make sure that if this room has to take 3 people instead of 2, maybe now we move a petition before we build it. You know,
I agree with that.
You know, it's not our charge, but it is something that it just makes sense.
So that's something, I'm glad you brought that up, Wayne, because that's something that I can sit with HR and we can go through actual head count and say, these are the plans. This is who we can accommodate based on our new plan. Tell me who is going to be here and who's not going to be here. And are we going to utilize space at the water department? Are we going to utilize space elsewhere? Because based on this plan, if we don't have enough space for the head count, we're going to have to look elsewhere.
Right.
So.
Yeah,
Good
Justin
point.
is new. Yeah,
Yeah.
he wasn't accommodated in our plan.
Which
Yeah.
one? The PR person?
Yeah.
Justin?
Yeah. But so that's what
A good point.
you know, which just has to be done separately. And I think it should. And of course, the people that created the plan, they're not here anymore. So the HR person, for instance, and stuff,
Right.
they were using what they thought was good. And we didn't have an assistant town manager. Is it assistant? Is that what it's called? Or is it something else that I read?
No, that's it.
Should have a legitimate place instead of a closet to be sitting in.
Let's not get carried away.
She's fine.
Only a $20 million office building. So
I hope it's a bigger closet.
Did we hire a procurement manager?
Oh, that's me too.
Yeah.
It all
got
happens
2
in the
offices?
closet.
he has
you're
to
so lucky.
he has to turn around in the closet, use that at the desk.
All right, it's getting late. Is there anything else on the agenda?
One thing I just want to bring up.
Go ahead.
So Tuesday night select board meeting. So obviously they want to know about the CM. They'd also like to know if we have an idea of what our marketing plan is going to look like. Obviously, you're going to work with Guilfoyle, and all those things that Guilfoyle outlined, I think really is the marketing plan, right? Of all those things that you're going to do. So I think they just want to hear that Tuesday night. They have you on the agenda for 15 minutes.
Right. We want them to approve do we need them to approve our contract for for what we're doing now?
No.
Or do we?
No.
Sorry.
We're good.
Okay. So then we're just going to tell them that we're going to proceed on, this is the progress report. This is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Period. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. That makes it easier. Good. And 15.
Yeah, so Carolyn's gonna be out of town. Tucker, are you gonna be there since you're such a big part of the marketing portion?
I can, yes, I can be there.
Awesome.
I will, can you say the time again, Michelle? By the way, guys, I'm very sorry. I was still at work when this meeting started, so I had to leave. So I'm sorry that I had to go off, but at 8:45, I had to leave. So I missed a little bit once the park segment, but what is it? What time is it at again?
So the meeting starts at 7. I'm not really sure what your time slot is, but I can send
Okay,
the agenda
you didn't know what
around.
ours is. And
Yeah,
it's on Tuesday. Yeah, I should be able to, I can make that.
awesome. Great.
I'd like to just volunteer one thing really quick.
Sure.
If it would make it any easier, and we don't need to talk about it now, but I am more than happy to do what I did for the kind of like use of the building, which is when I kind of like interviewed all the stakeholders, took notes of their concerns, and collaborated them into one. If people think it would be helpful, I'm more than happy to do that after everyone's reviewed the documents, the construction documents, so that we can have all the issues centralized in one place and not maybe have to do, maybe we can have a guided page turner. That way everyone kind of page turns on their own time. And then I can say like, all right, these are the pages we have questions on. I'm more than happy to do that. If people don't want that, no problem with me, but that is one thing I could do to contribute if people think it would be worthwhile. Everyone just have to give me some of their time to tell me what they thought needed to be done.
You're talking in preparation for the meeting for the 31st, is that correct?
Yeah, so I'm talking about the preparation for that meeting. I personally still have a lot of questions. If
Yeah,
that makes any sense.
That'd be great if you could help organize this for that. So what do you want? Questions from us to you?
Well, what I would like is if everyone could review the document, maybe next week. I just have to make sure I have everyone's phone number. I could call each person, or I can meet with you, or whatever you want, or if you want to email it, whatever, and I can just put it into one document. But I think it would be helpful if we all got on one page. So however works best for everyone, but I'm more than happy to collect it, whether it be via email or via phone conversation. Does that answer your question, Phil?
Yeah, that sounds great. I think that's fabulous.
Is everyone okay with that, or are people like, no, I don't want you to have my thoughts on paper? That way, also, just in case anyone can't make the meeting, all the thoughts get brought up. I'd rather talk about them with you so that I know where you're coming from. But if anyone wants to do email, I don't want to. I know everyone has lives and we're busy.
There's also that that review that Vertex did. That's a pretty lengthy, I don't know how many pages it is, but it's a pretty lengthy deep dive into the documents too.
All right, I'll proceed with that.
And I'm sure as the CM really digs into it too, they'll have handfuls as well too. So I wouldn't expect that the extent of this committee would be it.
That sounds great, Tucker. Help us organize for the 31st. Thank you very much. Anything else?
Yeah, I'd like to just apologize for a minute to the rest of the folks here, but I was just to my wit's end about some of the things on the site that have not been looked at. So I just wanted to do that.
I think your knowledge on some of the things you have talked about exceeds many of us, and it's important that that be aired. And if it comes to pass that you make some changes that are favorable for the end result, I think it's very important for you to move through that. You know, we've set up a process to do that now. So hopefully, Civil will be aware of exactly what you're looking for and be able to discuss that and see if it's probable, more than possible, but probable. So thank you.
I appreciate your passion and dedication there, Wayne. And, I think that, the design team could do a little bit better in hearing in responding to our questions and concerns and closing the loop, right? I don't think, I think that's one department where you know, you may not like the answer, you don't have to like the answer, but I think they at least owe us the due diligence in explaining the particulars behind it and the why. And even if, and quite frankly, I think this meeting with the struggle with the civil engineer and you should have happened months ago. And it's just, it's unfortunate that it has to happen at the last minute, or what feels like, I mean, we've got so many other things in front of us right now before town meeting. The grades and the issues out front should have been dealt with months ago. And I think that, no fault of yours, you've been bringing up for a lengthy period of time. And it has not, they haven't fully heard you. And they haven't fully heard us. It was something I shared with John months ago too, that I think they need to listen to us a little bit more.
Should we have Brian Joyce at that meeting?
Sure, I don't mind. One of the big things is they took this as being their only responsibility was from the outside of the sidewalk through the town hall. And they said several times that they couldn't do anything on the town property that would be part of that project. And that sort of made me say, wait a minute, this is the town. If there's something we want to do on the existing sidewalk or the road, the entrance, whatever, we should make it so that the two are compatible. So for instance, the sidewalk does not run, the town hall does not run to the sidewalk. It only goes down one ramp, up another ramp to get to the front of the town hall. And so if you're going across the street or if you're going anything, you're going to be on grass. And I'm shaking my head saying, this isn't right. It just, they're missing this link here for one thing. So that's like, if you look at the plans now, that's what it shows, you know what I'm saying? All the people that use the parking lot outside of the town hall hours and stuff, which is very frequently. So, but that's okay. Well, thank you both for you.
Michelle, could you invite Brian to that on the 31st?
Of course I will.
Be
Sure.
great. Super. Yeah, good. Anything else? Wow, it's 9:25.
Well, time for bed.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you all very much. We'll be in touch soon. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.